I am not a general. And I'm just like, yeah, I know, you fought a CGI monkey and all of a sudden people think you're the chosen one. I'll be honest, originally I wasn't even gonna watch Gladiator II or Wicked, let alone make reviews on them. Between Cynthia Erivo being a fucking diva and the fact that I like Ridley Scott about as much as I like Ariana Grande, I just wanted to get an early start on Christmas reviews and movies that I missed in theaters, but my local cinema was actually advertising a Monday mystery screening that I didn't think would be Gladiator because they advertised different runtimes, and Gladiator already had an early Wednesday showing, so I was crossing my fingers hoping that this Monday mystery would be Nosferatu. As soon as I saw the Scott-free logo at the beginning of the movie, I realized I was going to watch a different kind of bloodsucker, and it wasn't going to get off scot-free. Yeah, it's, that kind of movie. You make everything so much better, except this movie, because the theater doesn't sell Orange Coke anymore. Okay, so Gladiator II centers on Maximus' son Lucius, played by Aaron Taylor Yawnson. Oh, sorry, I mean Paul Mescal, who's been in hiding since the original's ending and has fallen in love with what the script claims is a strong, independent woman, but in reality is just a love interest. A love interest who is so bland and pointless, I instantly forgot her name. Until the Roman army captures their city, of course enslaves him as a gladiator, crosses paths with his mother, played again by Connie Nielsen, and sets him on a path of revenge against everyone who wronged him. Now I'll say this, Gladiator II had potential to be as good if not better than the first one, because let's be honest, the original had a pretty generic story and characters to the point where, had it not been for Russell Crowe and especially Joaquin Phoenix, I don't think it would have been as memorable, let alone have won Best Picture. That still eludes me to this day. To its credit, Gladiator II's script on paper has some really dark, complex character relationships that could almost be Shakespearean, where Lucius wants revenge on someone who's actually on his side and is so disgusted with his government to the point where he would risk everything to liberate his own people, but whether he wants to admit it or not, he's committed atrocities in Rome's name that he can't escape from, and worst of all, he's connected to the one family member that Lucius has left. It could have been a legitimately challenging character relationship, and if there were any moments where I actually gave a shit about what was going on, it was because Harry Gregson-Williams' score was just as epic as the first one. It has that massive emotional scope that the movie thinks it's trying to pull off. The problem is, Gladiator II takes itself so fucking seriously, yet the battle scenes not only aren't as badass as they should have been, but in terms of pacing within the script feel few and far between, with so much focus on performances, characters, subplots, with no depth whatsoever. You have talented actors like Pedro Pascal, Connie Nielsen, Denzel Washington, Derek Jacobi, among others, and instead of actually showing who their characters are as people before watching them plot against each other, you give them infodump after infodump of exposition that is so lazily written that none of these actors can make it sound interesting. Pascal, who in my opinion had the most to work with, looks and sounds so generic and bland, almost as if he doesn't even want to be there. Granted, his character doesn't want to be amongst this crowd of others, but just looking at him and listening to him speak, you don't feel the tension and remorse that you should be with this character. Hell, his actual arc of the regrets and atrocities he's committed in Rome's name, it doesn't even make sense half the time. The reason Lucius wants his head in the beginning is because Pascal killed one of Lucius's closest friends because that friend killed one of his soldiers who I guess he was close to, but it's literally never brought up for the rest of the movie. And then the next scene, he expresses so much guilt for the fact that he conquered and massacred all these people in the first place. And honestly, it's not like you were just watching the battle from the sidelines or whatever. You were slaughtering other people. For someone who wants to liberate Rome and bring peace to the world, you kind of suck at it. Connie Nielsen's entire arc allegedly relies on the connection between her and Lucius, but it takes half the runtime for her to even realize her only son is still alive and in Rome, let alone incorporating him into her plans. Before that, she's only complex because she's a woman in power trying to liberate the people of Rome. And I'm sorry, being a revolutionary against tyranny does not instantly make you interesting and likable, whether you're a man or a woman. You still need to have compelling, intelligent, sympathetic traits and motives that make us want to root for her. In this movie, she has secret council meetings that are Phantom Menace levels of boring and confusing, and she sends her only son, as a child, off on his own in the middle of the desert for his own protection, only to end up right back where he started. Mother of the Year, folks. Not only that, there's a scene towards the climax where one of the villains reveals that he was a slave under her father's rule, and the reason that he tries to climb so high up the food chain of power is because he wants revenge, which... doesn't that kind of shit on the legacy of the original? Because when you think about it, Maximus was fighting to restore what her father envisioned for Rome. I'd say Denzel Washington's the only actor who makes an impression here, but for whatever reason, Ridley Scott told him, okay, I want you to channel your inner Shatner. Because he makes so many pauses for dramatic effect. Seriously, if you took a shot every time he paused mid-sentence, your liver would be more fucked than the gladiators in this. And he essentially plays a mustache-twirling villain who's trying to climb up the ladder, gain more power, but he's too low-key for it to be entertaining. He does smile and laugh once in a while to let you know how evil he is, but it's not over the top enough. If he was anywhere on the same level he was in Training Day or Tragedy of Macbeth, he could have chewed the scenery in a way that Joaquin did without copying him. It'd be a hell of a lot better than these two cartoonishly tyrannical emperors of Rome who, of course, one of them is smart but psychotic, the other one just swings a sword around because he's crazy and acts like Sid Vicious the entire time. I wish I was making that up, but that was actual inspiration for the character. These two allegedly are supposed to rule over Rome with an iron fist and intimidate everybody. These two are so incompetent they couldn't even take over a fucking retirement home. And if you think I'm exaggerating, one of them literally appoints a monkey as his advisor. I guess that's Ridley Scott's version of political satire or something. I've seen both these actors give good performances before, but whatever Scott told them to do, it just didn't work. It was like watching two Eddie Redmaynes, but neither of them were funny enough to make it worth watching. So you probably noticed by now, I haven't really said that much about the Gladiator himself, but that's because, other than he's Maximus's son, there's really nothing significant about him. His backstory is as plain as it gets. He lost his father to tyranny and war, he has a pointless wife, a wise mentor who you think is going to be the saving grace of the movie because he gives such a good performance, and then they just kill him off in a completely pathetic way because he's the mentor, of course he has to fucking die. When he becomes a gladiator, you think his motivation would be just to avenge his loved ones, but halfway through he just randomly decides that he wants to lead a revolt against the Empire, even though there's already a plan in motion that he's not aware of, and he asserts himself as this strong leader amongst his fellow gladiators, but his skills as a military strategist or as someone who can be that persuasive are never established. But because he's Maximus's son, I guess that's the reason you're supposed to instantly connect that he's a natural-born leader, it's in his blood, or something, I don't know. He literally starts off his final speech before the revolt by saying, "I am not a general," and I'm just like, yeah, I know, you fought a CGI monkey and all of a sudden people think you're the chosen one. But when he has to be the tough rebel against his masters or rally his fellow slaves, he's just so blank and monotone that there's nothing charming or intimidating about him. I haven't seen After Sun, so I can't really speak much to Paul Mescal's acting other than he looks so much like Aaron Taylor Johnson and is just so bland in this to the point where I just call him Aaron Taylor Yawnson. If he was a badass action hero, I could overlook most of these things, but the battles themselves would have to be exciting to begin with. It's weird, you can tell that the action sequences are filmed on practical sets. There's no shaky cam, the actors are doing their own stunts, and it's allegedly an R rating, but you don't feel any impact when you watch these guys fight. Usually when you watch a battle, someone is on the left fighting their opponent on the right. You can see the choreography so clearly, but a lot of the action in this is just two people in center frame with their backs against the camera, and whenever they get stabbed or blood just gushes out of them, it'll cut away to a closer angle where you can't see any of that. Or worse, some of the cutaways are just the audience members watching the fight. Because yeah, fuck the guys who are trying to kill each other with swords, let's just watch the audience. There are entire gladiator matches where boats are crashing into each other, animals are attacking, there's a Colosseum climax that's basically Attack of the Clones that should have been amazing to see on the biggest screen possible, but there are too many actors fighting all at once, the camera is too close for you to even understand who's fighting who or who we're even supposed to focus on within the frame, but Scott just overstuffs the shit out of it just to suit his own visual needs as opposed to the story. Gladiator II is so bad that I literally have trouble pronouncing Gladiator at this point. That's how hard I've been ranting and raving about this movie. All I can say is that if the performances were good, which they should have been, if the characters were well written, which they should have been, if the battle sequences were awesome, which guess what? they should have been. No matter how overstuffed it was, I would still recommend it. But whatever thought process Ridley Scott has into his acting or his camera work or what the message of the movie is supposed to be, I just can't figure it out. And with that, guys, thanks for sticking all the way through. I have no idea how you guys do it, but it's much appreciated regardless. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of Gladiator II. Do you like it more than the original? Because I can... No, actually, I can't imagine that happening, but I'm sure it's possible. In any case, whatever you think of the original or the new one, let me know in the comments below. Be sure to like, subscribe, check me out on Patreon and buy me a coffee, and I'll see you guys in the next review. Take care.